Hey guys, welcome to another flight. Today I am going for a duration flight. For the first time trying to push beyond 30 minutes. Again, the Swordfish that I'm flying here is a 4S battery cell, 5,000 milliamps. I usually get an effective like 3,000 out of it. I know I can take it down lower than that, but I like to try to preserve my batteries, so very rarely have I gone even near 3,000. It's usually been like 2,700 max milliamps out of my 5,000 milliamp pack. But anyway, so if you've been watching my channel, my last flight, I flew that left ridge there in the frame that you see to get the furthest, I guess I call it, long range flight that I've ever had with my Walksnail video system. I have the Walksnail GT version 1. Flew all the way to the end of that left ridge where it kind of slopes off there, and sort of inspired me to do this more interesting long duration combined as a long range video as well. Now that I have a new place to kind of fly and I have confidence with it over there, to see what I can do. It turned out to be a pretty gusty, windy day. This was on a Sunday, so I was hoping to maybe see out on that ridge there's more visibility of Forest Service roads, so we might catch a few off-road vehicles out on a Sunday. And anyway, so my plan is to kind of fly up my normal route here on the straight out the backyard, these ridges here. Starting with the low one in front, I think I end up just passing over this and going to the second ridge behind. There's a third ridge. I'm not going to go to that third ridge back there. Just going to try to get some flybys of the peaks and go all the way out to that far ridge and see how things go. And you'll see I'm doing a voiceover after the fact, so I know what happens, but way out there, that long range, I have quite a few video issues and try to push it and invoke return to home quite a few times when I lose video. I don't lose radio control ever, but video tries to cut out right around 5.5 miles out, and depending on the angle of the aircraft, the antennas perform a lot better when the aircraft is nice and level like this. The antennas are kind of rabbit-eared out at 45 degrees, but if you point those antennas, like if you're in a bank turn, the radiation pattern is more optimal coming like right off as a big, it's like, think of it as a big giant donut that comes off the tip of the antenna. So when you're banked, that radiation pattern tends to be non-optimal and pointed more toward the ground and the sky, and that's what ends up happening to me there. But other than that spot over there, I pretty much get consistent 25 megabits per second, as you see here. Down on the bottom right of my screen is my bit rate. The bottom line is all about my video connection. The next line up on the left is my RC control connection. I have dynamic power enabled right now, so the number of milliwatts goes up and down, and then the link quality bounces around. Right now is 199% or 100%. But yeah, besides the wind, it was a pretty nice day out, and ended up the wind gets a lot stronger as I go further east down toward the other end, and it's like right now we're at about 9.6 mile-an-hour winds. That's in the upper left of my on-screen display is the wind estimate. When I get down to the end of that other ridge, it's getting up there around 15-20 miles an hour, and makes for a long slog back on a low battery. So yeah, here get some little breaks in the wind. It's kind of funny how there's pockets of turbulence at the ridges, and then like right there was a nice little pocket of crappy air. And you'll kind of notice I've been switching a lot between angle mode and cruise mode when I'm flying these longer flights, because I've noticed, and I haven't really dug into it yet, I'm using iNav, but angle mode kind of limits and does auto leveling. When you let the stick go to the middle, it levels your plane back to the middle. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, I'll go over this next peak here. It's nice if like I'm panning the camera a lot, to be in an auto level mode like angle, so you don't get disoriented when you're looking around, start turning the plane the wrong way. And then the other mode is cruise mode. I don't know if I pop it into cruise mode here soon. But what the difference that I want to point out is when I go into cruise mode, the altitude, there's an altitude hold which puts the airplane, keeps the airplane level like it should. It keeps it at the same altitude, and it doesn't allow you, at least in iNav's cruise mode, you can't override the altitude, which is kind of annoying. That's one thing I like about angle mode, because it'll level the wings, levels the altitude, but you can override the altitude by a certain amount, and you can go into a turn by a certain amount. But in cruise, it only allows you to change the bank angle or the turn. It doesn't allow you to change the altitude. But when I let off on the stick, getting back to the difference is, not only does cruise mode not allow you to change altitude, but it's leveling, it's doing the auto level in a different place than angle. Angle wants to auto level it in cruise mode. It's pointing the nose up more like it should. However, you can't like override that and change that if you're climbing. Like when I'm out, I'm flying all these mountain ridges out here. You need to change angle of attack a lot to gain and drop altitude. So that's kind of important to me, and I'm trying to figure that out. So maybe next time that I'm on the ground in the shop, I might dig into that. If any of you guys know, please drop a comment. I appreciate it. And where the difference is there in iNav that controls what's considered level. It's probably going to have to do with there's a setting for the angle, like kind of a permanent baseline trim for up, for either down thrust or up thrust. And then there's the automated. There's a tab for automated flight modes and how those work. So like I said, I haven't really dug into it yet. I'm just trying to figure out why. And here I'm in acro mode. Acro mode it's basically it's manual mode with stabilization, some little bit of stabilization, which in airplane, on flying an airplane, there isn't a lot of stabilization there. It's pretty much, there's not much difference between acro and manual in iNav, as far as I know. See, I'll go into acro if like here the wind, so the wind is coming from my left tail, kind of pushing to the side there. Yeah, when it's not all turbulent, I'll go into acro mode, because I prefer to fly in acro mode and just have full control. Now here's that road I was talking about. There's a road up here, and I'm kind of dropping down to look at. I see a vehicle down there, and they're either down. There's a trail that comes along this ridge, so they're either out hiking on the trail or they're just taking the view out over the valley. Yeah, and then I continue on. So I popped it. Yeah, see there, I popped into angle mode for a second. Try to, when I'm doing a lot of panning and focusing on something that just not comfortable being in acro mode, because you can easily start drifting the wrong direction. But yeah, and then so yeah, you can see the wind is picking up here, 17.7. It's blowing a lot harder down the valley down here. But yeah, I've already gone past that 4.8 miles away. So the bottom center where there's an arrow and it's blinking with a little house, that's how far away from my launch point that the airplane currently is. And then to the right is the total distance flown. It's approaching for 7.8 miles total flight distance. In the upper right of my OSD, far upper right is the total flight time, so I'm at 12 minutes 25 seconds right there. And then below that is voltage per cell of my battery pack, which, yeah, for lithium, these lithium ions apparently you can take down to 2.5 volts, but I pretty much don't like going down below, too much below 3.5. And 3 is the most. 3.0 is the lowest I'd ever want to take my packs. But yeah, then the total number of milliamps used is the next number down, and at 1400 there, he's at 1400. And then that percentage is an estimate of the total battery life remaining. Like I said, I have a 5,000 milliamp pack, but you can't fly the full 5,000 milliamps. So here I've just reached, because of that tailwind, I got down to the end of this ridge fairly quickly, and then went into a loiter, because I saw there's a bunch of, right there off my left wingtip, they're in the shadow. There were like 3 side-by-sides at the lookout, and here is the first time I totally lost video, and it was out for that amount. I had already pressed return to home, and that's why if you fly long range, you absolutely have to have GPS with return to home. And so yeah, I went into return to home, but I'm not giving up, because I'd already been down here and did not have such bad video outage before when I was down here. So I kind of compared, there was one factor I thought could be playing in, and that was altitude. The first time I flew down here, I was trying to keep my altitude higher up, which is always an advantage, because you're going to have a better line of sight down to your ground station. But and there was a difference. When I was out here before, I was at 3,100 feet. That's above the valley floor, not AGL. You know, I'm probably flying around 500 AGL right here. Try to keep it at 400. But when you're in mountainous terrain, it's hard to stay right at that 400 foot AGL. So anyway, I come back out of, to get my video back, I try to go back into a loiter. I want to get back over there, and then I notice they're leaving already. So maybe they saw this drone up here flying, and they're like, screw this, I don't want to be spied on. They took off. I don't know. But anyway, they had already left, but I was a little frustrated why I couldn't get down. I want to get down really close to that parking lot in there, because I'm getting good video here, but there's the altitude difference. I think is just it's just a couple hundred feet, but it's enough to make the video signal not as good. Here I am at 2,900 instead of 3,100, so that 200 feet, I think, is what made the difference on the last flight. The other factor that can come in is if there's moisture in the atmosphere, but there was not that much moisture in the atmosphere at all. It's already been very dry for a couple weeks. So yeah, I'm coming back in one more time. I think at the time that I was flying, I didn't realize they had already left. And here, so I like diving down, my antennas are pointing, like the tips are pointing away from home base, and yeah, like here I lost video for, it was a good 20 seconds, maybe even more. And the previous version of my Walksnail Avatar, and then finally came back right there. Previous version of my Walksnail Avatar firmware, it would not reconnect after that long of an outage. When it was out for like that long, 20-30 seconds, and I didn't realize till after the first time that happened to me, I actually let it return to home, and then I visually acquired the aircraft and landed at visual line, just line of sight. Then I learned later that I could power cycle the ground station and it would reconnect to the air unit. But I don't think you should have to do that. And I haven't so far I've been flying now, I probably have 6 flights on this brand new version of the Walksnail Avatar firmware, and I have not, that was probably the longest video disconnect I ever had. Didn't have to power cycle the ground station, it came back on its own. Here I'm down, I'm like at the level of the parking lot right over there on the left of the nose of my plane. I think this is trying one last time, try to get a view onto the parking lot, which I'm not really successful. I'm kind of getting into it. See, the bit rate's already dropping down to 8.5. Boom, lost it. Yeah, so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to fly down low to that, at least on the weather I had that day. So I don't really think the weather was that bad except for the wind. So the wind's at 17. So yeah, you can see there, I tried one more time. I'm trying to get out to 5.6 miles. I'm trying to get out to my maximum distance one more time, and try to avoid banking the craft as steep as I did before. But yeah, I'm still having trouble with the bit rate and video here. I lost it again. Now it's slowly coming back to 2 megabits a second. Jumping between 2. Now it's coming up to 13, so probably good to go there. I believe that was my last attempt before I started flying back. That one coming around again. Yeah. It sure is nice having a return to home. Because I would never, oh man, when I used to fly drones, quadcopters before on analog audio, of course you'd never get long flights at all like this on them, at least the ones I built, all racing drones. Anytime you get any kind of just twitch of a little bit of bad video, I'd turn around immediately. So I never had return to home on those or anything like that, no way to recover. And I was always flying proximity in the trees in the forest. There's no time to, you can't let it return to home anyway, because into something. But with this, where you're up in the sky above the trees, you have GPS and you have return to home. It's kind of fun to be able to do that, push the envelope. And I know it's not totally within the rules to do this kind of thing, but I'm out in a rural, this is all Class G airspace, not to say that it's still okay, but I've been out here a couple of years now, and I know how much air traffic there is. And there is air traffic that comes down the valley, but usually it's up at 5,000 feet because they've come over the Cascade crest and they're staying up high. It's more of the helicopters that once in a while, in fact, military helicopters will come down under 500 feet, come down the valley, but you can hear them from a long ways away. Anyway, yeah, I'm hit cruise here, 18 mile an hour headwind, and kind of just heading back because, and I'm not going to, I wanted to go back over closer to the ridge all the way back, but being I was below, right at 50%, now I'm below 50% on the battery, with the headwind, I didn't want to push things too much by loitering around all over the place, but it was kind of fun to see some off-road vehicles down there, and yeah, I'll do more flying down this way, see what I can see. Still hoping to see Bigfoot up there on the highest peak, the big, up there on the big meadow. Probably not going to see him, but, well, we've seen some huge black bear. There's elk, deer, of course, and cougar tracks. Have not actually seen a cougar face to face. Both black bears and cougars are going to be skittish of noisy motorcycles out in the woods. We're out there usually. That's what we're on. Unless they have cubs. Yeah, we came on a mom with cubs last year, and at the end of it was 2 years ago. At the fall of 24. Sorry, fall. Yeah, and she came upon her down. We were up above. We got the high ground, which was good. And she had like 3 really big cubs there, so we were thinking they got to be 2nd or 3rd year cubs. I mean, they will hang on with mom for 2 years sometimes. So, but she bluff charged us, and that kind of freaked out the guy that was in the front of the pack. Was like, "Oh my God, she's got cubs!" And we're all like, "Let's get the heck out of here!" And we turned around, and we were on a very steep hill. First time we'd ever come down that ridge, and we beelined it out of there. Yeah, anyway, here I'm coming back down. There's this other lookout with this, you can see the truck down there right now. Along this is kind of a major Forest Service road that goes along this ridge. Yeah, the truck's still down there, so they may be staged riding dirt bikes on a trail, or a lot less likely hiking, because dirt bikes is really, they kind of dominate this particular area here. Very rarely see anyone hiking. Seen a couple of mountain bikers. Yeah, it's kind of cool coming along here because there's some rock outcroppings, and I'm looking back down in that basin there was a fire decades ago, probably 50, 60 years ago, so that's why there's there's still a lot of dead trees in there. Kind of flying right, what I was going to say is there's this ridge line here, but I'm right over the top of it so you can't see it. A rock outcropping, rather, on the ridge line, which is was kind of a cool thing to look at. But at this point, oh, there, I look back at it, see it a little bit. At this point, I'm starting to look at my battery and the headwind pushing on me, and thinking a lot more about just getting back rather than sightseeing. But I think I still try to make it kind of interesting here. Go up to this last. There's a nice long sloping ridge line that's comes off right where the tip of my crosshatch is looking right now. Get over that and then go down that ridge line. In the fall it's really cool. There's a lot of larch. Finally, just getting up over this ridge, coming down the slope like I was talking about earlier. This is really a fun one to come down. Well, there's a little dead spot in my video right there. See, it dropped down to 13. There's a spot where there's a giant pine tree across the street from my house, and that's what gets in the way of my video here. And I mentioned a couple videos back when I was up on the tallest peak that's just off to my left rear there. It's not in view right now. It's off the other side of my rig. There's a big rocky section of that mountain that I was flying and trying to get in close to, and I have video issues right there. It's the same problem I have. Line of sight interruption by the giant pine tree across the street. So these are kind of things with flying long-range FPV that you kind of start picking up. It's kind of nice to be able to fly in the same place. You start learning all those issues, you know, where those are and whatnot, what to avoid, what to expect. So yeah, I'm in acro mode here. I was hoping to point out what I was talking about earlier with the differences between the leveling in like the cruise mode of iNav versus angle or horizon mode. When I'm in angle, it's slightly gaining altitude all the time. When I have, you know, thumb off the stick, it should be just flying level, aside from wind and turbulence and stuff. When I'm in cruise, it brings the nose up where it's supposed to and keeps it flying at the same altitude. So I think up here I'd probably do go into cruise mode here. And I can point out there's the artificial horizon that comes across the screen right in the middle there. And you can see, you know, there I'm in cruise. And in cruise you cannot override the attitude, the angle of attack that is up, up and down with the elevator, it kind of decides where to put you in, and it keeps it. See, it's holding altitude right at 1,290 feet right now in cruise. There, and it changed the artificial horizon, so it may be doing that by GPS. Come to think of it, maybe cruise is using GPS, and angle is just using like the onboard gyros, the flight controller's gyros. That could be the difference. But I've kind of come to learn that and use it to my advantage. So when I want some stabilization and I want to gain a little altitude coming up a gentle mountain range or ridge, I'll throw it into angle mode, because I can actually, and I can override the angle of attack in angle mode and change my altitude. There, I went into angle mode right there. See how it immediately took the artificial horizon, came way down closer to the crosshatch. It isn't right now because I think I might be manually inputting some override here, because I need to start losing altitude as I get down toward the valley again. I don't like to be way up here. Yeah, I think I took my finger off the stick and went back into cruise. It's artificial horizon's kind of right there in the middle with cruise right now. That's not normally the case, but anyway, that's something I want to figure out. Right now I'm using it to my advantage. If I need to change altitude, I'll just use angle mode. But yet I still want some stabilization. If I want just full control, I'll just go into acro mode. But if I want to hold the altitude, I'll go into cruise mode. And cruise mode seems to, in my opinion, it seems to keep things a lot more stable as well overall, but I can't change the altitude. It'd be nice to be able to adjust altitude while I'm in cruise with the stick override. So I might have to just go back into iNav and see if I have a setting I haven't turned on or off. So yeah, I'm getting down to 3.5 volts per cell. My 4-cell packs. It just dropped below 29%. But like I said, these are supposed to be able to go down to 2.5 volts per cell before they're, before you damage them. And I don't want to damage them. And I also don't want to shorten their life, because they've been fantastic. These lithium ions flying on a plane for as long as they go, they don't draw nearly as many amps as a quadcopter. They really kill batteries. And a quadcopter, the ones that I used to fly, you wouldn't be able to fly a lithium ion. You need a higher discharge. You got to buy the expensive polymer batteries, and they just don't last the cycles either. Yeah, these lithium ions are fantastic. And the hardest I was ever on these was, I just went full throttle for the first time this last couple weeks ago, just to see what the plane was like. And the Swordfish is a cruiser, and it really doesn't, it's not very stable at high speed. It's not unstable, but it just gets like vibrates and flip, it's not very smooth when you put it on full throttle, but it can go there. And at full throttle, these two motors pull, I think that they pulled 40 or 45 amps. That's right around the maximum burst rating for the lithium ion cells that I'm using. They're Molicel P50Bs. So they can take a 10-second burst, I think, of 45 amps. So they start getting warm too, that's what can damage them. But anyway, I'm just cruising on them here, so it's not like I'm bursting on them. But yeah, I'm trying to not take a burst of amps. The number of amps I'm pulling is on the right side of the center of the screen, where it's jumping around at 47 right now. That's my throttle position, 46%. The airspeed's right below that, 34 miles an hour. Anyway, right next to the 46, that's the number of amps. I like having that right there, so like when I change my throttle position, I see how many amps I'm pulling. I do look at that throttle position a lot, because one of the things with the digital FPV systems is there's no audio coming off the plane at all. There's no feedback there, and I was really used to that flying quadcopters. Having audio of the motors was a cue to the pilot, and when I'm flying the digital FPV, you know, it's like I'm looking at that throttle position and airspeed especially. Those are the most important. You don't want to stall, right? Ground speed, yeah, that kind of basically, it's the difference between what it thinks the airspeed is. The wind speed versus ground speed. Anyway, coming into final here, wow, got below 3.5 volts per cell, 37 minutes, and it was really choppy down in here. Even though the wind wasn't strong, I didn't want to have to do a go around with 21% below 3.5. Yeah, and I kind of did a steep dive in, no flare. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. 37 minutes, 5.6 miles, and I went over 3,000 milliamps, 3,113. Catch you next time.